I guess maybe for people that might not know the kind of the belief systems you were dealing with, maybe Muslims specifically, what they believe that's
Hmm.
different from Christianity, and
Hmm.
then maybe after that we'll talk about how you kind of go about talking with people. But what are the Muslims and the people that you worked with? What was their belief system? What was different about it from being a Christian?
I mean, it's definitely a works-based salvation, and there was also no guarantee. It was kind of like, there's these things that you can do, and hopefully, if you do them, you might get to go to heaven. And so, there was no, and it was more based on fear. Everything that people did was more based on fear, and not love for Allah, but fear of Allah. And so, but really, what I did when I talked with people, and again, it may be different. How men discuss in dialogue in South Asia could be different than how women do. But I chose just to know the Bible and to share the Bible, and not get into debates with people, but just listen to them and what they said when they could tell me what the Quran said or what they believed, and then I would share what I believed. But I didn't really get into I didn't normally get into debates. I would just share the gospel. One of the main beliefs in Islam is they do offer a yearly sacrifice
Mm.
still. And so, it was one of the things that I would pull out is that, these sacrifices that you're making every year, this cow that your family is sacrificing, or this goat that your family is sacrificing, isn't the blood of that animal is not enough. Because for one, you and I are not animals. We need the blood of a perfect person, and that's why God sent Jesus. A lot of times I would go about it that way.
Did they kind of resonate with that? Was there knowing that the Muslim religion is more of a fear, this idea to them that there's a loving God that sent his son to die for us, which seems to be foreign in the Muslim belief. Was it something they were kind of open to, kind of shocked by, but more receptive to? I imagine. I don't know. I mean, them growing up as Muslims, it'd be difficult to receive it, but it sounds like it would be a better alternative at least.
Right, right. I know that they did, like I said, I mean, their concept of a loving God was not there. That was not a part of their belief
Hmm.
system. And I remember a lot of times I would have people over to my house, and I had a Bible verse in my house hanging on the wall that said it was from Jeremiah, "I've loved you with an everlasting love." And I remember, having people even take picture of that on my wall, and just like, oh, that's such a beautiful verse,
Wow.
Even having, I think one time I had a calendar, like a pocket calendar that had some Bible verses in it, and the girls, university girls, looking at that one time and and just loving the verses that were in that. So
Yeah, that's really interesting. One thing that we may have talked about, I remember, I think Linda told me the story that was interesting is if you're feel free about sharing it. You had a driver
mhm.
and you helped lead him or her to the Lord, and then they went back to their village. Can you talk about that story a little bit if you don't mind? Is this
Yeah, so my driver actually, he was a Seventh Day Adventist when I met him, and so again, that's a works based salvation
right?
that he was believing. And so when I hired him, I also had a house helper, which having a house helper and a driver in South Asia is very common. I wasn't over there living the
We're living the good life.
yeah. So one of the things I did with my house helper and my driver is we would eat lunch together, and have Bible study once a week. And so actually both of them came to know the Lord through our Bible study times. And both of them later told me that, much later, told me that, when we first started the Bible studies, neither one of them liked it. They were not happy about doing it. But
Right.
but yeah, the Lord used His word to draw both of them into salvation. And my driver specifically, I said he was believing in a works based salvation, and the Lord, actually one night we were going somewhere, and he was having some health problems, and he was concerned that he might have cancer. And so he was talking to me about cancer. And I said, Mashum, I said, I don't want this to happen, but what would happen if you died tonight? where do you think you would go? And he said, Sister, that's a very hard question. And I said, well, it doesn't have to be.
Mhm.
And so that was on a Thursday night. No, that was on a Wednesday night, and his day off was Thursday. And so I sent him home with some scriptures to read on his day off. And then when he came back into work on Friday, we talked. And as we talked, the Lord just led me to talk about the story of the thief on the cross and how Jesus said, "Today you'll be with me in paradise," and how that man, he didn't do any good works. And because my driver, he was struggling with, he said in our conversation, he was looking at the scribes and the Pharisees in scripture, and he was saying, look at all these good works that they did. And Jesus
Mm.
told them that they weren't even good enough to go to
Mhm.
heaven. And so he was like, how could I ever do enough? And so when we talked about that story of the thief on the cross, it was like I could literally see the weight roll off his shoulders and his face just lit up. Um, and then I saw him grow to love the Bible more than any person I know.
Mhm.
And then take that back to his village and start sharing it. So it was an amazing thing what the Lord did in
Yeah.
his life.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, I think about it's amazing to think about this because and it really just kind of came to mind is you think about Christianity, there's certainty there in terms of the gospel, in terms of Christ's righteousness being imputed on us. When we become Christians, there's a certainty of what our future holds. I really haven't thought about this, but when you think about whether it's Catholicism or Islam or Judaism, there's just no certainty there. There's so much reliance on yourself and what you can do that there's really no there's I mean I was watching a video the other day. It was there were these Jews talking about what heaven is, and it seems you had five different Jews. You got five different answers on how you get to heaven and what that's like. There's so much uncertainty and as a Christian, I think we think a lot about eternity, but maybe there's not that thought process as much in these other religions. They're just thinking about what's next, what do I have to do, what are these things I have to keep doing, and there's no certainty of where what their future holds.
Mhm.
So, and I couldn't imagine living that type of way. So when you say that your driver was asked that question and just said it was a very hard question. He had thought about it, apparently, and decided he couldn't even come to an answer. It had to be a very freeing experience to then receive the gospel and understand what that means
Mhm.
now in light of that. Um, you have any thoughts? Just kind of, I mean, it must have been a freeing experience for both of them, your house helper
Mhm.
and your driver.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm just thankful that the Lord allowed me to be a part of it in their
Right,
lives.
right. For people that